everybody, what's up? You know the deal. Hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite average to good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad, and it's just Jimmy Conrad today. I've got nobody else joining me. No Chuck Wagon, no Big Tones, no McBrizzle, no one. And I think it's because, if you will indulge me for a second, I think it's because they were giving me grief, a couple weeks ago about how I never answer my own questions and you're just hosting and you're always on the fence. So like, you know what? We're going to give you your own show. And then you have to answer all the questions and you have to take all the smoke from the chat and all the questions that we ask for on social media. And I'm here and I'm ready to go. I'm locked in. Let's get after it. So I appreciate you guys. We're going to do obviously a little review of the Americans abroad and what happened this past weekend for our player pool. I'm going to answer some questions from the mailbag, and it should be a lot of fun. And buckle up your seatbelts. We are getting after it. Okay, so let's get into this segment we like to call Word of the Day. It's just me versus... I'm just kidding. We're not doing Word of the Day. But Americans abroad, the weekend recap, we're going to get into some notable performances. And there were some good ones. And I'm going to start with Mr. Folarin Balogun. Absolute beast. He scored in his third straight game for Monaco against his former club, Rennes. He scored an unbelievable goal. If you haven't seen this goal from Balogun, his running, his ability to pull off the back shoulder to create space, and then he gets the ball and then changes his speed, draws the goalkeeper in, little dink over the goalkeeper. Thank you very much. Monaco go on to win 2-1. The unfortunate part of this, and we'll get into it a little bit more, he dislocated his shoulder. We don't know how long he's going to be out. Still waiting to hear the test on that. But his confidence sky high. He scored a hell of a goal, and I'm really proud of him. Josh Sargent scored and also missed a penalty. He hit the post. It was 4-0 win, though, for Norwich over Hull. Paxton Aaron scored. He scored in back-to-back games, back-to-back Eredivisie games. Go on, Paxton. Johnny Cardoso played the full 90 in the El Gran derby, the great derby between Sevilla and Real Betis. And Sevilla won that one 1-0. But nice to see Johnny back in the starting 11, being trusted by Manuel Pellegrini in a big, giant game. Unfortunately, they lost 1-0, and he is hurt. And we're going to get into that in a second as well. Not going to be going into this camp. Christian Pulisic got his 6th goal of the season in Milan's 2-1 defeat to Fiorentina in Florence. Now, with regard to this particular game, there was 2 penalties that were taken and missed by AC Milan that obviously probably would have had a direct impact on the final results. And Christian, who has never missed a penalty in his career, who has been selected by the head coach, Paulo Fonseca, to be the guy that's supposed to take the penalties, didn't take either one of them. He got pushed off of the ball by Theo Hernandez, the captain of Milan, for the first one. Theo Hernandez missed, who doesn't actually have a good track record for being a penalty taker. He shouldn't even be taking them. That's why the coach designates somebody. And then on the second one, Tammy Abraham brushed Christian Pulisic aside, former teammates at Chelsea, and said, I'm going to take it. And he missed. And I'm pissed for Christian Pulisic. And I'm pissed that that even happened. A lot of ego. And you have to wonder what that means for the team overall. Can we read between the lines on what's happening? And then there was one more that I wanted to bring up in terms of notable performances. Brendan Aronson played the full 90. I thought he was good. He's looking more and more comfortable in that 10 role for his manager, Daniel Farka, and just Leeds in general. You can see the players really trust him, and he's doing a good job, again, of picking his spots and to when to join the attack and maybe get in advance of the striker, or also dropping back in to help find the ball and help find the game in different ways. Really been impressed with him this particular season, especially given the fact of all the adversity he was facing coming back to Leeds after spending last season with Union Berlin. It was a 2-2 draw for Leeds away at the Stadium of Light against Sunderland. And in that game, they should have won, but their goalkeeper, Ilan Meslier, I can't even explain it. It's a howler of all howlers. Ball's bouncing at him. I think he takes his eyes off of it. Maybe it's spinning a little bit, and he just misses the ball completely, and it trickles in and it goes 2-2. Pretty wild. So a couple highlights. If you haven't seen this particular weekend, go look at Balogun's goal for sure. Excellent, excellent goal. And you know what? Josh Sargent's goal, the Norwich, the build-up to that was excellent. One of his teammates, Borja Sainz, has been excellent. What a player. And I think that his understanding of movements and space and in relation to what Josh Sargent's doing and the whole team, I thought Norwich was excellent against Hull. this particular weekend. But let's get back into the Christian Pulisic penalty, because I want to get your thoughts too in the chat. And if you're watching this or listening to this later, hit us up at Golazo America on all the social media platforms. What do you do here? Because I think that there's some, if you're Christian Pulisic, if the captain comes over to you and says, hey, I'm going to take this, I don't know what you say at that point. I mean, you could say, hey, coach said I'm the guy. But Theo Hernandez, strong personality. That's clear. He's wearing the captain's armband for a reason. I don't think it's very captain-like. Let's look at it from Theo Hernandez's standpoint. I don't think it's very captain-like to alpha male the guy that's been decided to be the penalty kick taker for the season. I think that's bad leadership, and I think it's a sign of disrespect, or a lack of respect, we should say, to Fonseca, the manager of Milan, and I think secondarily to Christian. It feels more like a bit of a middle finger to the coach as opposed to that. But Christian's never missed one in his career. Let the guy take it. I know from an American perspective, we want Christian to pad the stats because it's only going to further the argument that guy's absolutely crushing it and one of the hottest players in Serie A this season. And the better his numbers are, the better that looks, and the more excited we get, all things considered. And he had a chance to do it again. And I think the one that pisses me off the most, okay, the captain pops in. I understand him not pushing back on that, right? You want to have respect for your captain and whatever it may be. But the next one, where Tammy Abraham, Fikayo Tomori gives Abraham the ball. It almost felt, I don't know if Tomori had anything to do with it. He just kind of grabbed it and handed it right to Tammy Abraham, who was clearly like, I'm taking this. And you could just see Christian like, what the hell is going on? And Dalton says, I'm triggered right now. Yeah, I might be. I just think there's a breakdown in leadership and communication between what the coaching staff wants and what the players are going to decide on the field. So I feel like we could use this if we're going to break down the psychological components of AC Milan. If they're not going to listen to you as a coach about who's taking penalties, are they going to listen to you when you're trying to give them tactics? Yeah, I don't know. I that's part of the conversation worth exploring. I don't know what Christian does here. I think that Christian is being polite ultimately. And we want him to be more of an a-hole, I think, in this particular situation. We saw it last year with Chelsea. You guys remember that with Chelsea, Cole Palmer, and I can't remember the players that were involved, but they were trying to take the ball out of Cole Palmer's hands so that they could take the penalty. And then it was just like, it was a shit show. Actually, you know what's funny is that Mauricio Pochettino could probably advise Christian Pulisic on what to do moving forward, because Pochettino was in charge of Chelsea when that happens. So I get in the moment, if you're a player and maybe you're the one that drew the foul, you want to be the one that steps up and takes it, right? Maybe you were the one that got tripped and you had a great chance to score the goal yourself, and you feel like that penalty is mine. I'm going to step up and take that penalty. But there are choices made by the coaching staff for a reason. So this is a difficult one. And I'm curious to see, not only from a Christian standpoint, but what that means for Milan moving forward and how it's managed. Sure, they're going to say whatever they're going to say after the game, but we want to see what that looks like in action. So Fonseca has got some work to do with that. Anthony Molina says the locker room is a mess. Pulisic handled it maturely. It's clear moving forward, Pulisic takes the penalties. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. I'm hopeful for that, of course, for a lot of different reasons, some of which that I mentioned. Fonseca actually came out after the game and said the penalty taker is Pulisic. I don't know why the players changed their minds. I talked to him and said it doesn't have to happen again. Doesn't have to happen again. Well, for me, it's less about Christian at that point. It's more about the other players showing respect to what's been set. I don't know. Producer Des says in our private chat here, counterpoint, at least he didn't have to take a penalty against David De Gea. By the way, David De Gea saved both those penalties for Fiorentina. It was excellent. Now, I've also seen this De Gea, when he played for Manchester United, not save any penalties. Was it against Sevilla in the Europa League final? Or Villarreal in the Europa League final? Whatever it was, he had like 20 chances to save a penalty, didn't save any. So I don't know which version of De Gea is going to show up. But De Gea was excellent in penalties this time. Read him like a book. So maybe those Teo Hernandez and Tammy Abraham did Pulisic a favor, and that way he didn't have to miss the first penalty of his professional career. And it was Villarreal. Oh, man. All right, so let's get into the next topic. We have a couple injuries. Flo Balogun out with a dislocated shoulder. I did that once. It was right before my senior season at UCLA in college, and that shit hurt, I'll be honest. And it took about 6 weeks for me to really get back to where I was and feeling confident in that movement and feeling confident in the part of, if I do reach out my arm, if I fall and I have to protect myself and use my arm to soften the blow, as it were, from the ground, I was confident in that. That took me about 6 weeks. So that, I don't know exactly, but he looked like he was in some significant discomfort, significant pain. And I would guess maybe modern medicine has changed some things, but let's say 4 to 6 weeks, all things considered. So he's going to be out definitely for these games. Obviously, he's not coming into camp anymore. Timo Weah did not play this past weekend for Juve in their 1-1 draw. And he has an ankle injury, so he is out as well. Then Johnny Cardoso, who played the 90 minutes, like I mentioned before, for Real Betis in their 1-0 loss to Sevilla, looked pretty sharp, all things considered. Hadn't played as much. I know he played against Las Palmas the weekend before, but those are the only 2 starts he's had so far. And so I'm glad that Pellegrini's starting to work towards him again, but now he seems to be out, which is unfortunate because this is a big opportunity for him to continue to put his stamp on. I'm going to be the guy. If Tyler Adams isn't there, I'm the guy. And when you look at it from Mauricio Pochettino's perspective, he's missing these 3 players. He's missing Tyler Adams, Cameron Carter-Vickers, and Gio Reyna for his first ever game in charge. That's pretty significant. Those are 6 players that you would be counting on in some capacity. Now, being added into the roster, you have Tanner Tessmann, who played this weekend, came off the bench. Didn't play midweek for Lyon because apparently he had a knock, but came off the bench in their game this past weekend for about 15, 20 minutes. Brandon Vazquez is coming in from Monterrey. He's got 3 goals and 1 assist so far this season. And then you have Alejandro Zendejas from Club America, 9 goals and 6 assists last season. Has yet to have a goal contribution this season for Club America, at least in the league, Liga MX. But obviously he's had his opportunities before, and I don't think he's made the most of those opportunities, but he's back into the team. And obviously getting into this first camp is hugely important. That first impression that you can make on the coaching staff is a big advantage, I think, for the players that are getting called in. And I want to say this. I want to reflect a little bit on my own career because I never would have had the opportunity to get called in had guys not missed for various reasons. For instance, my first ever call up into the men's national team for a camp, it was because Danny Califf left to go sign on with a team in Scandinavia. That was the only reason Bruce Arena called me in. It's like, oh, all right, we need another center back. Jimmy's like right there. So I wasn't even a first choice on the initial roster. I had to wait for somebody to get hurt. And any other time that I got opportunities, even when I made my way into the team and was around, I only got to play when people were hurt. Even the World Cup, right? Eddie Pope gets a red card, 2 yellows against Italy. I come on and we hold on to the 1-1 draw, even though we're down a player, 10 versus 9, because Pablo Mastroianni also had a red. Famous game, amazing experience. But I started the next one because Eddie Pope had a red card. So anytime there were these opportunities for me, I always had to take advantage of somebody being hurt or some type of situation where a player wasn't there. And these players have to do the same. They have to do the same. I knew too that, okay, I'm in camp. I have an incredible opportunity to prove to the coaching staff that they can trust me, that they put me out there. I can make plays and I can make the team better and I can make us more efficient. And that is really what I focused on. I didn't try to get caught up in anything else other than the task at hand. How can I make the team better every time I step on the field? I want the players that are already on the team to like playing with me. I don't want to be high maintenance. I am there to work, and I'm trying to make everybody else's job easier. And I felt like the more that I did that and the more that the coaching staff could trust me, the better my opportunity was to get more looks with the national team and to potentially get into camps. So then when I parlayed that first camp into the next camp and into getting called into the Gold Cup. Then when I got into the Gold Cup, I knew, great, this is I got 1 month with the coaching staff, because obviously we were favored to get all the way to the final, which we did, but 1 month with the team. And you're also being used in different ways. I was the only player in that 2005 Gold Cup that played all 6 games. And Eddie Pope got hurt so I played the first game against Cuba. We played Canada like 2 days later, crazy schedule, but 2 or 3 days later. So Bruce Arena mixed the teams. And the guys that started against Cuba would not start against Canada. But Eddie Pope had a little bit of a strain in his hamstring by halftime of the Canada game. So I got put in. And I'm on 2 days rest. But I knew then that if they could trust me in that situation, like, hey, we can rely on Jimmy to make plays, even though he's a little bit tired, and still be sharp and ready to go. And not only like in energy, but in organization and communication. And I know I'm speaking from a center back perspective, but it's really important for these guys to grab on to this opportunity and demonstrate where they think they can help the team. Not only in the obvious stuff, the technical and the tactical, but also the intangibles, leadership. We're lacking leadership. We're going to get into some mailbag questions. I think somebody asked me about center backs and how I would rank them. Yeah, that's crazy. That was crazy. So I don't know if I'm ready to answer that distinctly, because I don't know what Mauricio Pochettino is going to be asking of his center backs and how that they want to play. So obviously that would be a little bit different. So yeah, I don't know. I think this is a big opportunity. Brandon Vazquez, let's just go one by one for the players that got added. Brandon Vazquez, it's going to be tough for him to get minutes, but it's important for him to be around the team. I think Josh Sargent's been playing really well. Ricardo Pepi has demonstrated he can be a super sub and can be trusted in that type of role. Will they give him something a little bit different this time around? I hope that we'll see Vazquez. I just don't know how many minutes he's going to get. I think he gives us a different type of player profile. And then with Zendejas, he's had opportunities before. Can he take those opportunities? That's going to be really important. And where is he inserted, and how, again, we all have to think through the lens of Mauricio Pochettino and how he wants our team to play and how we're going to set up and where are we going to try to gain our numerical advantages. If we're trying to create them out wide and whip crosses in, then maybe Vazquez is the best choice. Though I think Josh Sargent's been excellent in his movement all season when he's healthy, of course. Big opportunity, too, for Josh Sargent. Can I just parlay or step into that a little bit, sidebar? Because Sargent now doesn't have to worry about Balogun. Like, for me, Sargent starts this first game against Panama. And if he does well there, I think you want to see more of him. He might get that next game against Mexico as well. So I really liked his movement in this past game. And every time I watch him play, I just feel like he's getting more efficient and sharper and smarter with his runs and the timing of his movement and his ability to finish. He gets a lot of chances every game, and you can't take anything away from that. And then with Tessmann with Cardoso out in particular, being captain of our Olympic team, Tessmann, I think, has a big opportunity to also get some valuable minutes. And again, whatever those minutes are, can you do enough to earn the trust of the coaching staff? So that's kind of what's happening with our player pool. And then obviously with some of the dropouts due to injury for this upcoming camp and the guys that have been added in. One more note before we take our first break. My former roommate at the World Cup and with my club team, Kansas City Wizards. Taste the rainbow, everybody, for all you KC Wiz fans out there. Josh Wolff, after 4 years at Austin FC, got let go. He's been sacked. And I'm sad for him. We talk not as much as I'd like, and I try to make sure I give him some space because I know he's in the thick of it and doesn't have a lot of time. The guy's super committed to his job. He was trying his best, as every coach is, for the most part, of course. But they didn't make the playoffs for 2 consecutive seasons. This is a results-oriented business, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't surprised that was coming. I'm sure he's disappointed, of course, but I don't think he would be out-and-out surprised. I'm curious what he does now. I would encourage him to take a little bit of a break on a personal level, take a little bit of a break, wait for the MLS season to finish, and then maybe see what other opportunities are out there. But after 4 years of being the first coach in that club's history and taking on so much responsibility, especially when Claudio Reyna had to leave the club after all the post-World Cup stuff that happened with the Berhalter family and the Reyna family, and Josh having to take on more responsibility before they hired Rodolfo Borrell, who is now the sporting director. And he absorbed a lot. I know that much. And so I'm hopeful that he'll get some time to rest and relax and reflect, and then hopefully use this as a stepping stone into something bigger and where he can really take all these experiences and turn it into something positive. I'm not worried about Josh Wolff. He gave it his all, and first 2 seasons were awesome and had a lot of success, and the last 2 were just a little bit harder. And I guess that's the problem when you set super high standards. It's not always easy to match those. And yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad for my friends, but I think he'll be better for it moving forward. All right, we're going to take our first break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we're getting into the mailbag, so get into the chat and start asking some questions. Don't go anywhere.
It's a team almost too good to be true.
You guys ain't ready for us.
Kick your game day off right as the Tops team tackles all the biggest headlines around the league.
Who's got 2 thumbs and loves this next segment?
Sunday mornings on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conradinho Conrad. In a previous life, maybe known as Cream Cheese. A callback for all of you that have been following this show for a very long time. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the support as always. So let's get into some questions, shall we? Appreciate you hanging out with me. I don't know if I've talked this much consecutively in quite some time. I could be a little tired after the show. All right, let's get into this. Russell Varner on the Instagrams, Why Always RV, says, this isn't a U.S. men's national team specific question, and he apologizes. I accept your apology. But the Supporter Shield or MLS Cup? And I assume he's asking, what do I value more? So I never won Supporter Shield when I played for 12 years in Major League Soccer. We were tied on points in 2004. Can I say this really quick? Kansas City, 2004. We tied on points for the Supporter Shield. The only reason we didn't go win it was because of goal difference. I can't even remember who won it, but they scored 2 more goals than us. So they got the Supporter Shield. We also won the Open Cup that year, and we got to the MLS Cup final. We were up 1-0 after 5 minutes, and we ended up losing 3-2 to DC United. DC scored 3 goals in 15 minutes. And Aleko Eskandarian's a cheater, just throwing it out there. Now, I wish VAR existed because they would have called back his goals. Clear handball. I'm just saying that because I'm still bitter. Of course, it's been 20 years. I'm still bitter. And we lost by a goal. So in some ways, well, yeah, it's fact. We were 3 goals short of being the first treble winners in MLS. That 2004 Kansas City team was sick. But they don't talk about us. You got to win trophies for that to happen. Now, to get to your question specifically, Russell, here in the States, we really value all of our sports playoffs. Talking about the playoffs and going through that process, working really hard to get into the playoffs, and then, okay, hitting that switch because it's playoff time, baby. We could fall into March Madness as well, right? You got to get into the big dance. And then once you get to the big dance, you got to show up, right? So I understand that. That's the mentality of American sports. However, when you think about this game in particular, this sport in particular, there's a real value in being the best team over 10 months. So I appreciate that Inter Miami just won the Supporter Shield, and I appreciate how much they celebrated that fact. That's a big deal to be the best team, especially for Inter Miami, who didn't have Messi for a good portion of it. They should take a lot of pride in that. That's a hell of an achievement, and that's a trophy, the main trophy, everywhere else around the world in this sport. I wish I would have had a Supporter Shield to my name because it takes a lot of effort, consistent effort and focus to be the best team over 10 months. So I would say the Supporter Shield should matter more than it does. But I also really appreciate the ring that I got, and I wish I had more than one, from MLS Cup. Because like I mentioned before, you're working really hard to get into the big dance. You get into the big dance, and now who can show up when everybody knows what the stakes are, right? If you play, let's say, a 10-month season, we see it other places. Let's say you're Man City and you're playing, I don't know, Southampton. Okay, Southampton, it's the last weekend of the season. Man City needs to win or whatever. Southampton knows they need to show up and perform. But I don't know. It's not the best team. It's like Man City's not playing Arsenal to win it. You know what I mean? How cool would that have been if the season had finished last year in the Premier League where Man City was playing Arsenal to determine who was one game, a one-off. And I know that's what cup competitions are for. So I'm going to get into that in a second. But that would be pretty rad. So I'm kind of torn from my American upbringing to also understanding that I think the value should go more to the supporter shield. And can you humor me here, everybody? If we didn't have MLS Cup in those playoffs and that was just done, I think there could be room where you could go with a Leagues Cup and you could have the Open Cup matter more because you could stretch out the MLS season a little bit because now you could run into up to Thanksgiving. You could still have Leagues Cup and then you could give more emphasis to Open Cup. And now it would be like everywhere else because just like, let's just use England as an example. You have the Carabao Cup, you have the FA Cup, and then you have the Premier League or you have the Championship or whatever. Anything underneath. They have it now. They've actually put here in the States, we put some things in place where you could have all of it. You just would have to eliminate MLS Cup playoffs. Do they have the courage and the bravery to do that? I don't think they do. So that's my take. That's my take on that. All right. Next question. This one's for Luis. Says, the conflict. We're going to go to the center backs one. And then I want to get back to the Patrick Schulte question after that. But rank our center backs and feel free to include defensive left back, right backs who can slot in centrally. I don't know. Maybe Joe Scally at times plays in a back three for Borussia Mönchengladbach. I don't think we're going to play a back three under Mauricio Pochettino. Seems like he's made that pretty clear. Maybe that evolves and changes over, or another Reggie Cannon can maybe play at center back as well. So we have a couple options, but in terms of ranking the center backs, let's just talk about our pool of players. Okay. Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tim Ream, and please jump in if I'm forgetting anybody. Chris Richards, Miles Robinson, Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, Walker Zimmerman, Max Dietz, who was on our Olympic roster, and Eric Palmer Brown, who just hasn't been able to, at this point, stay healthy to really make his mark on the. I think he's talented, so I'll throw him into the mix. In terms of ranking, I don't know how Pochettino's a former center back, so I'm kind of curious as to the demands and asks of this role for Mauricio Pochettino. I guess Jalen Neal could be thrown in there too. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to for the LA Galaxy. Obviously, they're having a great season in MLS, so he's got to be in there too for throwing Max Dietz in there for sure. Tim Ream, I think, is going to age out. Do we even want to? I know he's in camp now. I saw some of his comments that it was going to be a difficult challenge to be a part of this upcoming World Cup roster, but he's up for it. And I love that spirit and mentality. I guess let's leave Tim out of it and just what he brings to the table. I think he brings a lot. But if we said, hey, we're going to be relying on a 38-year-old or 39-year-old center back in the next World Cup, I don't think that's a good reflection on the player pool that we have in that particular position. However, you have Pepe from Portugal, was still running up and down the field for them in the Euros. So I guess it's not outside of the realm of possibility. But let's say out of these five. So we got Richards, CCV, Mark McKenzie, Trusty, and Miles. I think that CCV has an advantage because he has a pre-existing relationship with Pochettino with his time at Tottenham. He's got a little bit more FaceTime with him. Chris Richards everybody's going to get a good hard look. Obviously, Mikey Varas giving him the captain's armband in that last game against New Zealand, I think speaks to how he's being valued within, not just from Mikey Varas, but also I think just from U.S. Soccer's perspective. So I would probably put Chris Richards first. And maybe CCV just got to get healthy. He's got this toe injury right now. He's not in camp. It's a big opportunity for Mark McKenzie. So given that Mark McKenzie has done well in his transition from Belgium to France, I'll maybe put him second. So we'll probably see Richards and McKenzie. Big opportunity again for both of them to solidify who they are and what they're about. I would say CCV probably comes in third because of his relationship and because of the success he has. He's been playing well with Celtic and has been for a couple of years. So there's some consistency there. I'd actually put Miles Robinson over Austin Trusty. I put Miles in at 4 out of these players. I still think there should be a shout for Walker Zimmerman. I brought that up before. I know that's not going to be well received by people that don't care for MLS that much. But if we're going to have Ream in the conversation at potentially 37, 38, Walker's only 31. And the reason I bring him back into it is because he's got presence and leadership qualities that I appreciate, that I think do matter. When I think about all these players, let's leave Ream out of it right now. We'll leave Walker out of it right now. Just the 5 that I mentioned. Richards, sometimes you give a captain's armband to somebody because you want to see more leadership out of them, and maybe that'll be the catalyst to make that happen. Mark McKenzie, I still think is young enough where, and at a time in his career where he's just trying to be the best player that he can be, and maybe not focusing as much on raising the game around everybody else and going to a new country, potentially learning new languages is going to help that process. But I want to see more of that, more presence, more communication, putting fires out before they start. So I like McKenzie there, but I need to see more presence. And then who did I have third? I had CCV third. So we just need to get him healthy. This is a big opportunity for him with a coach that he knows to establish himself as one of the number 1 guys. And then Miles Robinson, I still think has a lot of upside when he simplifies his game and keeps things very simple in terms of decision-making on both sides of the ball. I think he's very good. Sometimes when he's maybe being asked to do too much or he's trying to do too much himself, I think I fell into that. Listen, I'm speaking from experience because I was very similar, where if I tried to do too much is usually when I ran myself into problems. But when I just played simple and got it to the guys that are better at transitioning the ball than maybe I was at times, I could hit a good pass from time to time, but just picking my spots, and that comes with repetition. That comes with seeing a lot of game situations. So I got some love for Miles in that capacity. And then Austin Trusty, I just haven't seen enough. I guess I have seen enough to know that I have him behind Miles. Again, that's another young center back. And it took me, I was 27 or 28 before I really hit my sweet spot. And 29, we could argue maybe one of my better years of my career where everything just started to slow down and I felt really confident in what I was doing in a 1v1 situation and my space around me. But then now how can I help other guys do their things and do it well? And ultimately, one of my, maybe this is, I don't know if this is too much inside stuff, but I would always go up to guys to earn their trust, especially when I went with the national team. I was so nervous, right? Oh, it's Claudio Reyna, it's John O'Brien, it's Pablo Mastriani. I really looked up to these guys, and they're in front of me, right? They're protecting the passing lanes in front of me as a center back. So what I would do is to earn their trust, because I had to do it quickly, right? I only had a couple weeks in my first camp to make that happen. I'd say, hey, I want you to do less running. And I'm going to put you in positions to make sure that you do less running. And then when you give them information that actually has them do less running and they're feeling good about the information and communication that you're giving them, the buy-in from them about them liking to play with you is really important. So when I say these intangibles, can you put guys in good spots to make plays? Can you put them in passing lanes that's going to make the game easier for them and more predictable for you as a center back? It's hard for me to see those nuances and subtleties while watching on television. I can only try to get bits and pieces from people that are in camp or from the coaching staff or anything that we can glean from the people that we know on the inside. But that is so important. And when you add that into a high pressure situation of playing with your national team at the highest level, that stuff has to be so quick and has to be said ahead of time, almost 2 or 3 plays. Like you're just putting people. Listen, I could get into the weeds. I'm a soccer nerd and I love team shape and I think it solves a lot of problems. So the better your team shape is, the more games you're going to end up winning. I just want to say that now I'm getting yelled at in the chat because Iva says that Austin Trusty is the only true left footer in the group. Yeah, I was a right footer. I played the left center back position. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. We got some John Brooks fans in the chat, he hasn't played for Hertha Berlin this season. So second division Bundesliga, he's slowing down. He's getting injured. And if he's healthy, I think, yeah, why not? Bring him in, see what he looks like. Ivis says both of my feet were equally bad. You know what? You're lucky you're not here, Ivis, because those are fighting words. Those are fighting words. All right, next question. And it was, what is it? Oh, okay. Master Joga Bonito. What's up, Master? He says, is the second division in England the only second division in the world that is good enough for a national team call-up? Well, as I've mentioned on this show before, I think the championship in England is probably one of the most competitive leagues in the world. It's a grind. They play, 46 games? Every 3 days, they're trying to kill each other in the championship. That is not easy. And so I think because of that, and because it's so closely tethered to the Premier League, and that if you do well in the championship and you get promoted, it's a nice kind of backdoor entry into the Premier League. I think that attracts a lot more players. And there's a lot of romanticism around the Premier League, of course. I think it's the best marketed league in the world, and everything trickles down from that. So when you're that close to playing in the league that everybody knows and watches around the world, I think there's a lot of good energy around that in particular. And then when you add into the fact how competitive the championship is, and there's still very good money in the championship as well, probably because of all the balloon parachute payments for all the clubs that go down after they're relegated, probably makes it the best paying second division in the world too. So I'm not surprised there's a lot of national team players, not just from our country, but around the world. I know Ireland has a few in the championship. Scotland has a few. I think Canada, Liam Miller is at Hull City, I believe, from Canada. I know there's a Swiss player that's playing right now. Yeah, so I'm not surprised that, one, it's littered with talent, but also that there are national teams that are looking at that second division favorably, as opposed to, this is a great question, what other second division around the world would be looked at like this and be being looked at as a destination to draw potential national team players into your pool? So Kiefer Moore plays for Wales. He's also in the championship. Bundesliga 2, I'm sure there might be a couple guys here or there. Serie B. In Italy, second division La Liga. I mean, there's some good teams, good players playing in those as well. I don't know if there are any core players playing there, maybe more fringe national team players. Definitely smaller nations. Smaller nations are drawing from wherever they can get their players playing at the highest level. So it's less about that. It's more about the biggest nations, I guess. We're trying to have that type of conversation. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't think that the championship is looked down upon as a second division. It's almost like it's all separate league. But I think there's some value in how many games that they're playing, how competitive it is, and then you got that golden goose at the end, that if you end up coming through the championship positively, you're going to go up into the Premier League. And when you're looking at it as a coach, if your players are being consistently challenged and maximizing their opportunity, like we're seeing with Josh Sargent, he is really settled in as the guy up top for Norwich. He's creating goal contributions, whether he's at the direct end of it, whether he gets the first assist or gets the hockey assist as the second player that's unlocking something. I honestly have been really impressed. You can actually just watch Norwich highlights and see, even in the highlights, the extended highlights that the CBS Sports Golasso channel puts out on the YouTube. So you could go check that out. But you can see the type of movement that he has. Now, if you go watch a full game, you can see it on even more full display. And I thought, to talk about Flo Balogun again, the way he scored that goal against Rennes this past weekend was excellent. And so it's funny that we went from having, like, striker's always been kind of an issue. Like, who's our guy up top? We don't even know. We're playing musical chairs with our number 9. And now that seems like we got more than enough guys to choose from. Now it's just about picking the right guy, maybe picking the right formation, who plays underneath them. Do we play 2 strikers? Whatever that might be. Do we push one of them out wide as a winger? Now we have a bit of a center back and goalkeeper problem. That's crazy. That's like the opposite of what we know here in the States. So, all right, let's get to one more question before we hit our next break. This has been fun. I've been enjoying this, and I appreciate everybody in the chat keeping me going. What question do we have next? Okay, this is from Luis G. Centeno. What's up, Luis? He says, is Patrick Schulte ready for a move? Now, Patrick Schulte, for those that don't know, 23-year-old goalkeeper for the Columbus Crew. Started in the Olympics for us over Gaga Slonina. In a pretty good position to push for the number one job. Started for us against Canada. Made some very good saves. And I think what's interesting is that when I look back at his career, even as a professional, he was with Columbus Crew 2. So they were in the MLS Next Pro. Okay, it's the league for younger players, ultimately, U23 league. Putting air quotes around that. He won that with the Crew 2 team. They won everything you could at MLS Next Pro level. He was in goal. Okay, he gets called up. Now he's with the Crew, the first team. He wins MLS Cup. Then this past summer, he wins Leagues Cup. There's something that I like about someone that knows how to win. There's something that I like about that quality and characteristic. That even if things aren't going well, he's still going to be a part of a team that's going to win something. Now, okay, you can say whatever you want. That's the situation he was in. I know there are times where we play against teams that, okay, for instance, we're playing Panama. We want to play Germany's and Spain's and Brazil's and our friendlies, but we have Panama. Now, we have some revenge against Panama because they hurt us dramatically in the Copa America. But I'd prefer to play somebody else, not than Panama. But that's the team that's in front of us. Then we have to go out there and kick their ass and play the best that we possibly can, whoever's in front of us. And so when I look at Patrick Schulte as an example, that's just the situation he was in. And guess what? He's won everything that he could win. I've got plenty of time for that. Will that translate to the national team? Who knows? Will that translate to whatever club he goes to next? I hope so. He's got a great track record so far. So there's something about Patrick Schulte that I appreciate. Now, we look at the Olympics. Okay, maybe he could have done a little better on a few plays. Good experience. We weren't expected to win that. A little disappointed we didn't take one more step to have extra games, right? To give more of our younger players more of that critical experience at a high level. Now at 23, if he makes the move, which at this point, I think he's ticked a lot of the boxes with the Crew. But if he can make a move, that next step is going to be really important. And he can use Matt Turner as an example. He can use Gaga Slonina as an example. Yeah, okay, you can sign with a big club. You can sign with Arsenal's. You can sign with Chelsea's. But we need you to play. You need to play. That's how you're going to get better. Zach Steffen was another one. Went to Man City. Awesome. Can he play? He played in cup games. Great experience for him. I remember, didn't he go to Germany for a little while and got a season? If you can find a situation like that, that's great. But I would actually, if I'm Patrick Schulte, I would figure out a way where you're not thinking about the biggest club on that step away from the Crew. You're thinking about a stepping stone club. And I guess the big question for everybody listening is, what league is that? What club would that be for you? I went back and looked at Brad Friedel and Casey Keller's trajectory, and MLS hadn't started yet when they were getting going. And to Brad Friedel, credit, he came back for the first year of the Columbus Crew to kind of help the league get going. So fair play to him before he went back over to Europe. But he was at Galatasaray. Brad Friedel was at Galatasaray for a season. Like, yeah, that league is intense. The Turkish Super League is crazy, right? And you would learn a lot from that experience. Now, ultimately, I say this because we want Patrick Schulte to go somewhere and be the number one. And I don't want him to go somewhere where he's the number two. Now, I want him to compete for his job, but I want him to actually have a viable opportunity to compete for this job. And so that's kind of what I would be looking for. Is that the bottom half of the top divisions in Europe? Is that going to a bigger club, let's say in a Turkey or a Portugal? And I don't even know if he would get into Sporting or Benfica or Porto. Probably not. But how about Braga, right? I'm just throwing that out there. Could he go to Bologna? You know, or I guess Bologna is decent, or at least has been this past season. But is there somewhere else? And I don't necessarily want him to be in a situation where he's going to get pumped the whole time, right? Where he's just facing 18 shots every single game. Not to say that he couldn't benefit from that, but it would be nice for him to be part of a competitive environment where a team that's maybe mid-table. I don't know. Yeah, Casey Keller was at Rayo Vallecano. Like, there are these little stepping stone clubs that I think would be hopefully grateful to have somebody who's like an up-and-coming goalkeeper who's eager, and they all know the plan. I'm just going to be here for 2 or 3 seasons. I'm going to kick some ass. I'm going to leave my mark, and then you can sell me for a bigger number. I think there's situations out there that we can find for Patrick Schulte. Maybe not we, but he. And I'm hopeful that we can make that work. All right. Wind me up and watch me go. That's the kind of show this is. We're going to take our next break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, I'll answer some more questions. So this is going to be fun. Keep it right here.
At CBS Sports Galazzo Network, we're bringing you the game.
The madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Wow.
And all day long!
24/7.
I'm still going. How long has this show been? 45 minutes? I've been talking for 45 minutes. And if you're still here with me, that's unbelievable, and I appreciate you. Welcome back into Call It What You Want. I'm Conradinho. When I go solo, I only go by one name. That's Conradinho. It's actually on the back of my shirt. Conradinho. For those that can't see it, just got to trust that I'm wearing a Conradinho jersey, and I am. More questions. Here we go. Who's the greatest defender in American history? From Ace Champ Elites. Greatest defender in American history. I'll just leave myself out of this answer, out of respect for all the other guys. Greatest defender in U.S. soccer history. My vote, and I'm biased here. Well, I've got 2, actually. I got 2 votes. One's Marcelo Balboa. And I say Marcelo Balboa because he grew up 30 minutes from where I grew up when I was a kid. I had his photo up on my wall. And I had the chance when I was 15 to talk to his dad. His dad came over and talked to my club team, and it changed my life. And I say this because my club coach wrangled him over to come talk to us. And he's like, "Hey guys, do you have any questions?" He seemed a little reluctant because I think everybody's asking for his time. And I put my hand up and I said, "How did Marcelo play in a World Cup for us? How did he do that?" And he goes, "Oh, he just went and worked on his game every day for 2 hours at the park." And it completely changed my life. I then tried to mimic what Marcelo Balboa did. So I went to the school by my house. What's funny is that the biggest takeaway, well, there's a lot of takeaways from this, but the biggest takeaway was I had to go out there and I realized that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And that was incredibly powerful. Now, I also went home after 10 minutes because I was so bad with both feet, as Ivis said in the chat earlier, that it was easier for me to go home and play video games with my friends than to actually get better at something. Now, to my credit, I went out the next day and then went home again after 10 minutes and kept doing that. But then after about a month and a half, I started to get a little bit better than my teammates. And my teammates didn't know what was happening. Like, what are you doing? What are you eating? What are you drinking? Are you sleeping more? Like, what's the story? And I didn't want to tell them my secret. And so once that happened and I got proof of concept that this extra work was finally working. The game was slowing down. My first touch was getting cleaner. I could make decisions better. It just took off. I went from 10 minutes out there to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to an hour to 90. I never got to 2 hours a day like Marcelo, but it's crazy. That was the only thing that Coach Louis Balboa told me. He just went to the park every day and worked on his game every day for 2 hours. That was it. And then he went on to the next question. And that changed my life. And so Marcelo Balboa and his family is huge. What's crazy is I proved that concept to be true. I went and worked on my game every day for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I didn't know what I was doing, and it took me a long time to figure it out. But once I did, off to the races. Because then you start to realize, start asking your questions. If I played like an hour a day, would I be like 10 times the player? What if I started running? Would I have more endurance? What if I started lifting? Would I be stronger? Like, we know the answers to all this, but to actually go out and do it was really impactful in terms of how I built my career and how I laid the foundation. And not only from a physical, technical, well, I'd say technical standpoint, but I also started to become more of a student of the game. I started to analyze and have more awareness about what I was doing in my decision-making. And that helped me continue to elevate. And it gave me a safe space to kind of work on my game with nobody watching, no judgment. And when I was working through adversity or being told I wasn't good enough or that I was never good enough to be a pro, let alone playing for the national team, I knew how to protect myself and to figure out a way to work through all that. Anyway, so Marcelo Balboa is there. And then I also have Eddie Pope. Now, what's crazy about Eddie Pope is that I studied this guy's game. I wanted to be Eddie Pope. when I was coming through college and when I was watching MLS when it first got started. He played for DC United. He scored the winning goal in the first MLS Cup in 96. And the guy's a beast. But I studied his game so much that when I got to play with him in the national team, I knew how he was going to move in every situation. It was like peanut butter and jelly, baby. I was like, I know what he's going to do. And I'm going to be able to cover for him, or if I step, I know how he's going to drop off and protect the space behind. I knew it. I knew Eddie Pope inside and out. And I really appreciated his game. And he was a quiet leader. He was a leader through action, not by words. So I was, as you can tell by me talking, I'm a perfect compliment to him. So it was a really good relationship. I loved playing with Eddie Pope. I loved watching him play. And so I'm going to go with Eddie Pope, and I'm going to go with Marcelo Balboa. And I've given you my 2 reasons as to why. Cream cheese and peanut butter. I love that. Peanut butter and Jimmy. That's a good one as well. All right, give me another question. I'm just getting warmed up. How much longer we got on the show? What do we got? All right. Colin on Twitter says, what are the favorite / least favorite stadiums / cities for U.S. men's national team players? Colin's trying to get me in trouble. Do you think I would come on this show and say my least favorite city to play the beautiful game in is X? Are you insane? No player, not even me, that's not even a player anymore, is going to come out here and say, yeah, you know what? That city sucks some ass. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I think what's cool about how big our country is that when you go into certain cities and play, everybody's so proud to watch the U.S. play. I'm sure the women's national team players can speak about this as well. And they've had more success, a lot more success than us. So I think the love and adoration they get from the fans, probably a little more, more happening there. But that said, I think it's really important to get it into as many markets as you possibly can to expose the game to as many parts of the country as you can. I remember we had a friendly against Venezuela. It was before the 2006 World Cup. And we got a friendly against Venezuela in Cleveland. I'd never been to Cleveland. I haven't been back. And that's not it's not because I didn't like the city, but I had just never been to Cleveland before. And I thought it was a really interesting market to go play. The fans were great. Everybody was pumped up that we were there. They're all ready to send us off on a high before we left for Germany for the World Cup. And it was a really, really cool experience. And so I think about that because that was a market I'd never been in. And I thought everybody was great. Now, of course, it's all circumstantial, right? If you go, let's say you're playing. I mean, I was actually at the Gold Cup final. I had a concussion, so I was out for the game where we lost to Mexico 5-0 in the 2009 Gold Cup final. 0-0 at half, and we lost 5-0. That one hurt. And so you're in New York, and you can disappear a lot better than in New York than some of the other cities around the country. But even that, I mean, the people come out, and you just want a good environment and some good atmosphere. And so I don't really have any least favorite cities, Colin. Okay, trying to put me on the spot. But favorite cities, I guess it's all kind of down to your performance. If you play well in that particular city, you feel good about it. For me, I scored against Mexico in Phoenix. Anytime I go back to Phoenix, I'm like, this is my town. I am one here with this town. So obviously that city has a different type of feel for me. My last national team game was where the Galaxy play against Honduras. I got 2 yellows in 15 minutes. I was captain. I went out in a blaze of glory. Referee definitely had it in for me. 1,000% had it in for me. Total BS. And you probably think I'm holding on to something. I am holding on to something. Total BS. And so it's interesting because the Galaxy Stadium, I lost MLS Cup in that one. I got my last national team game there, but I'm from LA. What hurt more was that I had about 200 people there at that game for me, and I got thrown out 15 minutes in, and it was just like a slugfest after that for the team trying to survive. We ended up losing 3-1, so I went out in a blaze of glory. But so yeah, every market has a little bit something different, probably more personal to the player than anything else, but I didn't have any least favorite cities. So, and yeah, actually that game in Cleveland, I'm just looking at the chat right now. That was Michael Bradley's debut. In the lead up to 2006, Bruce Arena wanted to have one more player because we had 23 players. He wanted to have 24 so that we could have even numbers in certain situations. So Michael was with us, Michael Bradley. So he had his debut. It was his first ever cap. Came on as a sub in that game. And I was captain. That was the first time I'd ever been captain for the U.S. men's national team. And it was a game where obviously the A guys weren't starting. So there was a big conversation about who was going to be captain that I found out about later. Like Claudio was our captain. And they're like, wow, who do you think Bruce is going to give the armband to? And they all ultimately got to me, and I was the captain. Crazy. So fun fact about me. I have been captain for the national team 5 times. There's only 40 players in the history of the program that have been captain 5 or more times. And I did it in 27 caps. I think my captain to game ratio is quite high. Oh, baby. I'm just saying. I'm super proud about that. To be a walk-on in college, to not get drafted into MLS, to then being captain of the U.S. team. Crazy, dude. It's wild. It's like we're talking about somebody else. All right, last question. Will the FIFA Club World Cup have a negative impact on U.S. soccer's ability to hype up the men's national team to the non-soccer loving masses ahead of the actual World Cup? This is from Rafa. What's up, Rafa? So my concern with the FIFA Club World Cup is that it's exactly the same time as the CONCACAF Gold Cup in 2025. And that, I think, will have, for the casual fans, it could be a little confusing as to what the hell is going on and what should I focus or where should I put my attention. The FIFA Club World Cup is happening more on the East Coast, and a lot of the Gold Cup's happening in the Midwest and West Coast. So, and also when you add that in, the Gold Cup is national teams, the Club World Cup is club teams. And I think that could be a little bit confusing. That said, everybody knows the deal when the World Cup is. Once those 2 tournaments are over and we have that nice runway into 2026, I don't think there's going to be any issues marketing the World Cup to the whole country 1,000 times over. So ultimately, I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, in terms of creating the Gold Cup and or the FIFA Club World Cup as a gateway drug into wanting to know more about the sport from a casual fan perspective, I think it could cause some confusion. But hopefully they're going to these games with some friends that do know what the hell is going on, and they'll be able to educate them on some of the complexities of the relationship between FIFA and everybody else and who's trying to make the most money and how and why. Just follow the money. Just follow the money. That'll solve and answer a lot of your questions ultimately. All right. So that was a hell of a show. I had fun. Hopefully you guys had fun as well. This was me debuting my new solo show in the future, coming to you live from Golasso Network. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what is happening, but this is fun. And I appreciate you guys. And we'll come back at you on Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Nope, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And I believe we'll have the usual suspects here with me. I feel like I've talked enough that I don't need to hear my opinion for at least 3 shows. I'm just throwing that out there. And that way it can be Charlie and Tony and McBrizzle that are answering all of your questions moving forward. Sorry, 3 p.m. Eastern. Can you guys cross off the 6 p.m. Eastern? 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. And it's going to be me with Mike Grella. Mike Grella is blowing up. I've got plenty of time for Mike Grella. He scored a crazy goal for Pat McAfee's team at TST. And all of a sudden, the guy's a superstar. I'm actually honored he's coming on the show. I'm going to try to get his autograph afterwards. But me and Mike Grella on Thursday, and we'll have a lot to talk about. As always, a nice little preview for the game against Panama is probably on the cards. Just throwing it out there. Nice little tease. Thank you guys for hanging out with us, with me. And I say us because I'm including Ivis and producer Dez. It's been a great show. We appreciate you. Hit me up at Golasso America or at Jimmy Conrad, all the social media stuff. And we'll catch you on Thursday. Later.